Hey, I'm Aeon,
And I'm the Lioness.
and you're listening to Box Number 512 Podcast.
Grown black trans woman talk, changing your world one conversation at a time.
The show begins now. So, let's let you mention in your updates that you just celebrated your anniversary. And I think it's really important for this platform that we and one of the things about our show that I love is that we have such very and unique experiences. And I felt like it was important for us to discuss your marriage experience on this platform because that's something that we really don't hear about from Black trans women. Them being married and what the whole experience was like and how you navigated through it. And not like your whole marriage, but like around basically I want this conversation to focus on your wedding and your wedding preparation and just the emotions that you experienced and how you got to the other side. Because I think in our community we kind of idealize like marriage and relationships and love, but because a lot of us haven't really done it and haven't really experienced it, we don't have any expectations of like the reality of not only getting married, but what it means for your whole ecosystem.
Right. Well, I'm excited to share this conversation. I think one thing I will say about I don't have again I didn't have very many examples. I had no friends that I could go to like help advise me in this situation. A lot of my close confidants are trans women, and out of my friends, I was the first one that was actually going through this process. And so, I mean, I have sisters that have since then, that are getting married, and I have one of my close friends is, but I just remember feeling like, what the fuck now? Because unlike my sister or other women out there who are from a young age already kind of like postured to embrace this process and kind of postured to like want a wedding and already have it planned and have ideas. I kind of came into this as a woman who's trans who did not expect to even be married. So that the deeper level was, this was just as much as a shock to me as it must to other people, because if you were to ask me before I met my husband, would that even be fucking possible? I'd be like, no, I don't want to be married, because I thought that was something that could not include me, that the definition of marriage was something that was too heteronormative, too specific, too, directly influenced by the church and the world for me to be allowed to participate in that. So I had already dismissed that as an idea. So in this moment, it's just exciting because I finally get to maybe be a possibility model and maybe let other girls know, like, we are doing it.
Right.
We are doing it. So, sis, do you have any questions for me, darling?
Yeah. So, well, let me preface the conversation by saying this. Samaya and I didn't become like super close until after you were married.
Correct.
It wasn't until after I moved to Chicago. And I remember I came back like right at the beginning of my first year of law school, and I saw you, and that's kind of where we started our journey. But you were already married by then. So I just wanted to preface that when you like, well, where were you at? We knew of each other, but we weren't sisters at this. But I wish we were, so I could have been there to turn up and celebrate and all of that. But I want to start.
And my husband loves her, and she comes to visit my house. She's one of the few people that I don't have guests. So you are the only guest that comes to my house to stay. So, that shows you the level of closeness that Brianna and I have. And my husband loves Brianna. And so her at the wedding would have been wonderful. But again, we weren't as close then. So I'm excited to share these details with you too.
Yeah. So let's start here. So how long were you and Tierra together before he proposed?
We were 4 years. We were together for 4 years. So we've technically been together since 2000. I met him in 2010. 2 weeks later, we moved in, and we've been together ever since. So it's a decade of us being in the same house. It's a decade of us paying bills together. It's a decade of us, because so we evolved from what in our time together. I think we did 2 or 3 apartments, and now we're on our second house. We've bought and sold our starter home, and we're living where we are now. So it's been quite a journey. But yeah, it's been 4 years before we got married, and it was one of those things. We were living together, and we were in Georgia, and we were happy, and it wasn't necessarily something that I was pressed for. And also, to be real, I wasn't even at that point for real. I always just assumed that everything had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Every relationship, including my family's, did at that point. So I didn't think that that forever was a possibility. I only took it one day at a time. I didn't have expectations. But after 4 years, we were sitting on the couch one day, and I remember kind of saying to him, like, so, because also the big milestone for me was that was my 20s were over. My 20s were over. So here I am, this 30-year-old woman, and I'm looking at my husband going, so what are we doing? Because you just got all my 20s, and no shade. I don't want to be, I'm not going all through all of my 30s without some type of understanding of where this is going. And, just in his regular kind of peaceful self, he turned to me and was like, oh, well, I've been saving to get you a ring. I want to propose to you. He said, but I know you want something grand and you want something big. And I just don't know if that's something I can do. And I really looked at him in his face, and I chuckled. And he's like, why are you laughing? I said, you have no idea how I'm not that girl. Like, I don't have a lot of people to come to no big wedding.
Right.
So that's definitely not what I wanted. And yes, I am a very grand woman, but I was like, fuck a ring and the value of the ring and all of these other little things. I initially mentioned to him having like a JOP and keeping it pushing. In Georgia at the time, LGBT marriages were not legal. But because I had my paperwork changed, I have had all my documents changed, I could have still got through,
right,
and had it. But my husband pointed out to me, he was like, yeah, babe, but I don't want to get married that way. He said to me, he was like, what we've been through, you riding for me for this many years, I feel like it's bigger than a JOP situation. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, well, what's the budget? And he gave me a number. And when I tell y'all, it was not a big one. But how about I sat on that couch, and the one thing I asked him, I said, so what type of wedding do you want to have? He said, I want to have a destination wedding. I was like, work. Sat my ass down on my cell phone, typed in destination vacations, narrowed it down to this company that I liked in Hawaii, that had a pretty affordable package. I paid for the marriage license online right there on the spot. And then I turned back to him and said, because he told me, because before when he asked for the budget, I said, well, what card do I need to use? And he gave me a card to use. And right there on the spot, I paid for our wedding, the marriage license, all at the same time, right then and there. So now we have a wedding date. We have a wedding plan. We have a wedding, and I haven't technically been proposed to. Mm-hmm. So I began my wedding planning. And so it wasn't until, so now I set the wedding to be planned in August. Initially, it wasn't supposed to be on my birthday. It was supposed to be August the 20th was supposed to be the day. But that particular year, August the 20th fell, I think, on like a Thursday. And in Hawaii, all of the beaches are public. And so there are many different people, many different officiants trying to vie for beach space on that particular day. And some locations require that you have to register in advance with the park so you can use that particular beach. And so while we were planning it, I thought that everything was fine and that we were going to be good for the 20th. And then the guy calls me back and says, So I couldn't get the venue that you wanted for that particular day. There's some other options, and the options that he gave me for that venue were like the week before I'm coming to Hawaii, or like the week after. And I was like, well, we're not going to use that location, so where else can we have this? And he was like, well, if you want to have the wedding, because I told him what time we were going to be in town, he was like, well, these are some locations that are available, and there's this one location that has a great view of a sunset. And it's a beautiful beach, and the sun will literally look like it's setting on the water in front of you. Because, you know, Hawaii is in the Western hemisphere. I mean, it's on the West Coast, and it's really, really far out on the West Coast, and it's close to the equator. So when the sun set, it literally looks like it's touching the water. So he was like, we can do it there, but the only day available is the 22nd. And I was like, fuck. The Leo in me was very, very heated about having an anniversary on my birthday. Because I want 2 separate gifts. I don't want you to just be my gift every year. You're like, well, you know, it's me. You know, like,
no, I need
like,
no,
honey, I'm gonna need a gift. And so in my selfishness for that moment, I was just like, but then I thought about it and I was like, okay, we'll see. And what I will say is, from the moment that I announced this process, shout out to my sister, Toya Washington, also known as by her performer name as Ebony Sherry. From the very moment that I told my sister that I was getting married, she jumped into overdrive mode and really, really helped me. She's the girl that I went dress shopping with, and we cried. It was so many different things. But yeah, it was 4 years before we got married. And then when I started the process, I paid for the wedding even before he proposed. He ended up proposing 2 months later, but he ended up proposing 2 months later. And it was hilarious because we were laughing because when he got on his knee to propose at the same park where we had our first date, people were around, and when he got on his knees, I chuckled. I started laughing, and he started laughing because we know that the wedding's already paid for.
Right.
So we're keying in the moment, and the people are like looking kind of weird, like, why? Because he said, will you marry me? And I started laughing because I was just so the people are looking like, oh no, is she laughing at him? And I was like, yes, of course. And then I was like, yes, of course, I have a dress to buy. Yeah. And he chuckled too, but it was an inside thing. I wonder if those people that they thought that I was laughing at him in a funny way or not, but we were in our own world laughing because we had already paid for the wedding. So yeah, it was 4 years. It was a lot of family shit too that I'm sure you're gonna ask.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Yeah, but it was 4 years, and the process wasn't that hard. I mean, at least the paying for the wedding wasn't hard.
So there was the destination wedding, and then from the pictures there was a wedding back in the Atlanta area.
Correct. So we had a reception in at the Crown Plaza Ravinia here in Atlanta, and believe it or not, their whole hotel is designed to look or to have the feel of a tropical island. So they have birds in the like loose birds in the what you call it, when you walk into it, I forget what you call it.
Like the atrium or something?
At the atrium, yes. In the atrium at that main level, they had like birds in there, and they already had tropical decorations, and they already had it set up where there's inside the building little waterfalls all in the main area. If you've ever been to Atlanta and if any of the girls ever went to Southern Comfort Conference here in Atlanta, that hotel, ladies, that's the hotel. And y'all know how it has that beautiful lanai out back, and then all of those beautiful gardens. This hotel has like at least 2.5 acres of gardens in the back. And it's just like a botanical garden. It's really beautiful. And that's where we had our reception. It had these little bridge overlooking these little creeks, these man-made little creeks that they have in the back of their hotel. And so we used the whole ballroom floor, and we had it catered through the hotel. And you could literally walk from our reception out into across a watered bridge out into some flowers. It was so beautiful. But yeah, it was beautiful, but that was the moment. Like when we got married in Hawaii, we had my brother and his sister came. And no one else really from our family. Our parents are older, and that was a pretty expensive ticket, and it was pretty far for
right.
That's why we wanted to have that second ceremony. But what I do know is The second ceremony to me was the stressful one.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the one that was stressful.
So I want to take the conversation here. I want to. So when your engagement became a thing and your marriage is going to happen, how did the people around you receive the news?
I want to start with the usual suspects.
Yes.
I want to start with how family.
Yes.
So my family and I, before Tier, did not have the greatest of relationships. In the 4 years that I dated him, though, there was a real rekindling of that relationship in a way that we were fully reconciled. Or we at least fully reconciled to the place where, because there was a period of time where my parents would meet me at the mall like I was a stranger. We would have visitations, girl. So like it was interesting, but there was a period of time where my parents just didn't know how to process my transition. What was funny was when I got into a relationship, and then as a result of the relationship and me graduating and getting jobs, my parents, I guess because they saw my success and they saw that I at the time was doing really, really well and still now doing really, really well, all things considered, that there was nothing there was nothing for them to be hating on. And they really like Tier. I really feel, and I say this all the time, I really credit my husband with helping me mend the relationship with my family, because I think a lot of their rejection of me was just based out of fear that I was never going to be okay, that something was eventually going to happen to me, or
nobody was ever going to love you.
Nobody was ever going to love me, and I was setting myself up for this lonely, crazy life. When they saw stability in her, and I think too, having a son back.
Explain that.
So my parents, I'm their child, but I was, so of course, as a trans woman, I was assigned male at birth. And I think the big issue with my parents really or particularly my dad, I'll say my dad, the big issue with my dad was he felt like, I come from a very traditional kind of Southern, I'm from South Carolina, a small town kind of mentality. And in my childhood, women were in the house. Women were in the back rooms or in the kitchen or are sitting in their own areas, and men are separate and they're in a whole nother place. And the men and the women kind of don't really necessarily sit amongst each other all the time. And I think in my father's old school mentality, as a girl, I was no longer privy to the conversations of men. And he lost his ability to engage with me about certain topics on certain levels because I was a woman. And so what Tier allowed was for him to have somebody he could talk about football with. It was somebody that he could talk about the draft, someone that he could talk about cutting the grass and strategies, because my father he really should be a topiary artist. Like my father, he's really into landscaping, and especially at our house. And my mother is really into our plants. And like, I though was none of those things. And so I think my dad enjoyed Tier's calm spirit and his nature, and he enjoyed the fact that my husband looked up to him, and he enjoyed that my husband listened to him, and that Tier was always respectful. And I think my dad liking him made him like me more. And even though since then, my father and I have had very much more meaningful conversations, and he's even apologized to me, and we are in a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful place. But at that time, it was still difficult. So my family kind of was okay with it because they were okay with Tier. They liked him. So it wasn't no pushback from them. Now, his family was a bit different. And this is not to throw anybody under the bus. We have really great relationships now. Like I said, all is well, but I'm telling my story.
Right.
My mother-in-law, my husband's father is deceased, and my mother-in-law is single. And my mother-in-law could not fathom the idea that I was going to be in her family. Leading up to the wedding, she stopped speaking to us for a while. It was a very difficult kind of a situation with her.
How was the relationship before y'all were going to be married? Was it good then?
I didn't meet her until that reception.
Oh
yeah, she told him, don't bring the world to my front door.
Oh, okay.
And I wasn't allowed. I never met the woman.
Okay.
I had never met the woman. We never talked on the phone or anything. So my first encounter with her was the night before my reception. I'm headed out for my little women's dinner / bachelorette party, but it really wasn't bachelorette. It wasn't really like no sexy thing. It was like we went to a restaurant. Actually went to Lips here in Atlanta, a drag restaurant, and we had we sat down and had a meal, and it was cute. And it was me and my girlfriend, Toya. Again, none of my friends showed up. I invited everyone in my life to that event. Even if
we're going to get to that.
No one fucking showed up. So it was just me and my sister Toya at this event having a nice dinner. And I had my crown on, my little tiara. And I was like I felt special. And the MC of the Lip show called me up on stage, and they, did a little thing for me. So I felt special. But before we left, I ran into my mother-in-law as she was checking into the hotel in the lobby. Not a great encounter. It was just two Leos meeting. And both of us trying to, but I really feel like it was both of us trying to make the other one know it, girl, I don't see you. So we're coming through the sliding glass doors in the hotel that spin around. As I'm going out of those doors, she's actually coming in, and the doors are spinning. And we shared this, both had this moment of like disgust and like resentment, and like, we didn't say anything out loud, but there were definitely like sucking of the teeth and noises, and like, we had a moment. It was not cute. And to the point where my girlfriend was like, girl, who is that B word? And I was like, don't say that. That's my mother-in-law. Like, don't say that, because my girlfriend was ready to be like, what the, have words. Right. And I was like, that's my mother-in-law. And she was like, no, you're kidding me. And I was like, yeah, girl, that was our first meeting. She was like, are you going to go back and speak to her or introduce yourself? I was like, no. But I knew she knew it was me, because her brother, now every other member of Tierra's family had embraced me. I was allowed to go to any events, but if I was at an event, his mama wouldn't show up. So it was very that tea. So everybody else in the family knew, loved me, and was cool. Like, they had known me for years. So I wasn't new to them. I had been there for hell and high water. I babysitted his sister's kids. Like, everybody in his side of the family, but his mom was okay with me. But she was the last holdout. And at that event, we kind of had an awkward moment. And then the morning after the ceremony, we had another awkward moment. But and we had words, because she was like, why didn't you speak to me when you saw me? And I was like, what? I was like, why did you have a nasty look on your, we had words. And she opened the car door on my ass and told me to get out the car. Like, we had words. But we had words, but we were able to mend that. I was not surprised by her reaction, to be honest, because she didn't know me. And now knowing her, I know how territorial she is. I know how dominant she is as a woman, but I also know how much she loves her son. And I get that I was probably the unknown factor. And since then, she and I have had wonderful conversations, and she's all right with me. We don't have no beef. We don't have no quarrel. I've cooked at her home for Christmas, because everybody knows I'm a cook. I cooked Christmas, like for Christmas, I cooked at her house, which is a big thing for women. And and every time I come, she's always been more than welcoming. And Tierra and I stay in the same room, and it's no tea, So I like her. It's no problems now. But yeah, family was the thing that I was kind of not surprised about. I knew that his family would kind of be a little resistant, and I knew my family was going to be okay. What gagged me though, sis, was community.
Okay, so we're going to get there. But before we get to the community there, I think there was a touching story that you told me about your parents on the day of your wedding. Do you feel comfortable saying that here or?
Well, I'm actually at this point, more than one thing happened. You talking about my father? What he said?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so when I first came down this grand staircase at this place, and now mind you, my dress. Now this is the one part of my ceremony that I did invest in, was my dress, and I didn't pay. I was able to get the dress significantly cheaper than the 7,000 and some change they wanted for it, but I did still invest in a really nice dress, and it was the full carry. I wanted to be full Disney princess. I needed the train. I wanted to be my inspiration was The King and I. If anyone knows that Disney movie where they wear the big hoop skirts, that was my initial inspiration for the shape of the dress. But the wedding was themed. It was an Indian themed ceremony, so I had all Indian jewelry on, and my husband was in an Indian outfit. One of those traditional men's wedding outfits. Mm-hmm. I had on all of my 200 pounds of jewelry, honey. And when I came down those stairs, I saw the shock pass over all of my guests. And I remember my heart started slamming in my chest because, of course, as a trans person, getting that kind of attention feels a way. Mm-hmm. My body didn't interpret it as a good thing at first. Initially, my fight or flight was triggered. I wanted to punch, bitch. Because I was like, oh, girl. Because now, mind you, the whole hotel lobby is focused in. And I'm going down this grand staircase down in the middle of the hotel lobby, down to the atrium level where my event is being held. And everyone is standing around this grand staircase waiting for the bride to come down. So I come down the staircase. I have my full bouquet and all of my regalia there to ascertain. I'm coming down the staircase and immediately...
And you were sitting, bitch. You were sitting. Let me say that.
Thank you, girl. Immediately, the wedding photographer, he's like, okay, pause here, pause here, pause here. So I'm a little frustrated because I envisioned in my mind that the entrance would be more like slow. It would be more like I envisioned it being a descending, but it was really like, stop, let's take a photograph. Stop in the middle, let's take a photograph. All right, I need you from this angle. I need you to look up. It became... So in a weird way that allowed me to not focus on the people staring at me, because now all the cameras are going off. So as I'm coming down the staircase and more of the guests can see me, it's just like cameras are flashing everywhere and I'm nervous. I'm like, please don't let me stress sweat. I just put on this makeup. Mm-hmm. please. I get down to the bottom and I came down the stairs to Wishing on a Star. I wanted it to be Wishing on a Star, the original, by the...
Rolls Royce.
Rolls Royce, yes, The original by Rolls Royce, that's what I wanted. But of course, the queen that I had in charge of the music...
Beyonce.
Did Beyonce. So I'm coming down to Beyonce's Wishing on a Star, baby. And then when we get to the bottom of the staircase, we immediately went into our song, which is Donny Hathaway, A Song for You. So we immediately went into our first dance. So he's at the bottom of the staircase waiting on me, smiling, and his hands waiting, outstretched for me. I grab his hand, and the music immediately shifts to our song, A Song for You by Donny Hathaway, and we start our slow dance. And then after we slow danced and everybody clapped, and yay, and did all their pictures, then they played some fast music. So then, bitch, I'm in this dress and I'm trying to like look smooth while no one else is dancing, watching me and my husband dance. And I think it was Before I Let Go. Mm-hmm. Not the Beyonce, praise the Lord, that wasn't out there. But we danced to Before I Let Go after we did our song for you, A Song for You by Donny Hathaway. And I looked around the room and I was really, really amazed. But what was interesting is my father, now I didn't see my parents. Now they had texted me saying that they were there, but I didn't see them. And believe it or not, at the beginning of the ceremony, my parents were kind of hiding. They were like in the back of the room, kind of like observing from a distance. Like you would not have known that those were my parents. You would have thought they just were another one of the guests initially. And then as I'm getting all this love and whatever, my mom, my mom couldn't hold it no more. She comes up to me and she's like, "Oh my God, you look so beautiful." And she hugs me and we have this really, really touching moment. And my father at first says nothing. So then the event goes and we're taking pictures. And then he says, "I want to take a picture with you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And my daddy puts his arm around me and we take this picture. And then he turns to me and he says, "Samaya, you look beautiful." The room got quiet in my mind. I couldn't hear nothing else. The world stopped. Because my daddy told me I was beautiful. And that had never happened before. Not only did he say I was beautiful, he used my name. For the rest of my days, and I looked at him and I said, "Thank you." And I said, "Daddy, you stood for me today in a way that I did not expect or plan. And you stood for me, and I will always stand for you." And we both got teary-eyed. And then, him being the dad that he is, he's all right. And he kind of, he pushed me away playfully and we laughed and he walked away. But that moment for the rest of my life was an affirmation because I never thought that would happen. I thought that was impossible. I thought I would never live to hear him say that. He's the one person that I did not even have the expectation for him to ever say it, because that's how anti I thought he would be. But in that moment, caught up in the beauty of that, how beautiful I was, caught up in the celebration and seeing how much people loved me and was willing to stand by and support us, I think it softened that old man's heart. And since then, he calls me Samaya. Now, he's like any parent, he'll sometimes slip, but he always apologizes profusely. And I can tell now, we've had some miscommunication since then, just regarding him just being more on it about it. But now he doesn't make no mistakes. He tries his best. And if and like I said, if he does even slip and say he, like casually, he'll like profusely apologize. So I love my daddy, and that was the moment I knew he loved me. Until that moment, I always had my doubts. But when he turned to me and said, "Samaya," oh girl, I'm getting emotional. He turned to me and said, "Samaya, you look beautiful." I swear to you, I thought people were lying when they say something can happen and the music stops and everything goes slow-mo. That's exactly what happened. I was lost and I was trying not to fall out in front of them people. And that is one of my most beautiful memories.
Yeah, I really wanted the listeners to hear that story, because I remember when you told it to me, it really touched me, because we long for those moments of acceptance.
And I got one of them regular black daddies, y'all. This ain't no new age nigga. This is somebody that has been raised to have some of the same toxic masculinity views that we know. He's one of those men. My father was in law enforcement, so he saw trans people in a way that wasn't positive. And for him, I think what kept him from seeing me as redeeming was that in his mind, those are the people that we lock up. And so the idea for him to suspend all of the things about him that were uncomfortable to give me that moment was just a testament to his love for me and how it superseded his own toxic mentality. And I want y'all to know out there, it is possible because I had the daddy that was not playing the radio. I had the daddy that was like never, and to the day I die, I will never. And so that I'm a living witness that you can have a relationship. And now it took time, and it took me many years of me telling him, and I don't want to be bothered with you neither. But eventually we were able to get to that place. And so for anyone that's lost in that moment with their parents, where they just feel like this is unredeemable. Like I was homeless, y'all. Like I'm here to tell you, I was unredeemable with my parents too. But yet still I rise, and we came together as a family, and time heals all wounds. And now here we are 6 years after the wedding, 10 years in this relationship with Tierre. And My parents come to my house. I go to their house. I spend the night in their house with my husband. We have a great, wonderful time. My mother's birthday is right after mine, and we usually celebrate it on the same day. So when I sent her gift, I called her via FaceTime, and my daddy and me and her and Tierra was just cutting up, laughing, having a good time. But I attribute it to that moment, that pivotal moment where I think the tide of everything and the momentum that I had and the moment of seeing everybody support me and seeing that I wasn't a failure, he had to acknowledge my beauty. And I'm grateful for him to have the courage to do it.
Now that we got the good stuff out of the way, let's go to your social circle, your friend circle, because I know from us talking about this how this really impacted you, because you didn't expect some of the things that happened. So your friend circle, and this includes your trans queer friends as well as your cis woman friends. When you first announced that you were engaged to be married, what was the vibe? What was the energy?
Well, so let me give just a little context. So when I started dating Tierra, and this is a lesson for you girls. If y'all looking for some man that just come from nowhere, Tierra had a dating pass, and so did I. And Tierra before me had dated another girl in community that was beloved by some of the same people that loved me. And when we first started dating, initially it was, oh, she took so-and-so man, not realizing that they had been separated for more than a full year before I met him. And because he was so prominent with her, you know how the girls in community do, oh, you will always be so-and-so man because that's what we know you for.
Right.
And they had dated for years. They had dated for 4 years. So, everybody everybody associated him with her at first. And so at first, and when they broke up, she kind of did like a little smear campaign on him. And I can't allege what was going on, but I know I've never experienced any of the behaviors that she accused him of, and I'm not gonna get into that. But I've never experienced anything like that. My husband has been nothing but beautiful, nothing but sweet, nothing but a good man to me. I have no problems. But she made some allegations that even my chosen mothers in the beginning were not very supportive of the relationship. It took me bringing him around and daring them motherfucking face to crack. Because see, I'm that girl. If you love me, you gotta love who I love, bitch. So it took me bringing him around the girls and daring their face to crack and them hoes not saying nothing. And it took them seeing how he treated me. I remember my trans mother actually apologized to Tierra and to me, like about 2 years into our relationship, because she said, I never really truly knew you, and everything that I thought about you could not be accurate for the person that I'm meeting, and I want to apologize for being so resistant. Now, that was cool and all, but that still was like a cloud that I feel like resonated and reared its ugly head when it came time for me to do my wedding planning. Because in community, by and large, everyone was excited, except the people that weren't. And the people that weren't excited, it gave very, I would tell them, oh, I'm getting married. And it became very, well, how can you trust him, girl? You're going to marry that man and you don't know. And not even that they knew him or even knew the allegations that were lodged up in the past, but they were just on the strength of, oh, he gonna, girl, don't do that, because you know how these niggas are, girl. He ain't gonna, he probably cheating on you now. There were a lot of people that when I told them I was getting married, began to tell me all about their horror stories with niggas that played them. Mm-hmm. And, oh, you only been with him 4 years. Oh, my man didn't start beating me until 6 years in. It's just like really making me feel away and like unsupported. And so I had to circle it. So I learned from that. And when it was time for me to send out invitations, I made sure I sent it to people that I really care about, people that were important to me in community, because I had some very nice invitations. I was very proud of them. But interestingly enough, I had my cis girlfriend ghosted me. Ghosted. I may have had, now Tierra and I had friendships as a part of relationships that where we all co-dated, like, you have a friend circle, and his line brother and their, his line brothers and their wives I was cool with, and his childhood friend and his wife I was cool with, and the friend circle that we met as a result of hanging out with these folks, I was cool with that larger group of cis women because they were wives of men that my husband was cool with.
Mm-hmm.
But like my actual cis friends, I had a handful show up to the wedding out of all of the ones I invited. And I invited at least 60 people. And I made total at the wedding, we may have had 60 people. But I invited 60 people myself.
Why do you think that was?
I think I was doing something that, to be real, I think I was doing something that a lot of girls didn't feel like they could connect to. I had a good girlfriend, a good cis girlfriend that actually said to me, so she kept calling me as the wedding was getting closer, like, oh, getting all of the details. And I'm talking to her like a regular girlfriend because I'm thinking we still cool. But she keeps asking me, when is the wedding? Now, the shade of her continually asking me when the wedding is that it's also my birthday, bitch. So it's my birthday, bitch. Like, you're my friend. You know me for years. We've celebrated my birthday before. It's my birthday. But more importantly, girl, but I didn't never say anything. But one day when she asked me again, well, when is the wedding? This is 2 weeks before the wedding. She said, well, when is the wedding? I said, girl, what does your invitation say? Because I'm not telling you no more.
Mm-hmm.
So what does your invitation say? Because I sent you a very nice one that I spent a little coin on, sis. But where's the invitation? She said, oh, I got it. I said, did you throw it away? She said, no, I got it. She said, it's sitting on my nightstand. To be honest, girl, it's sitting on my nightstand unopened. And I was like, why is it unopened? And she goes, because opening it would depress me. And I was like, bitch, depress you how? And she said, because even you got a man. Even you, bitch. Like I was an alien, bitch. Like, even you got a man. And it just it would depress me. And I remember saying in that moment, well, don't open it then. And I was like, and you don't have to come if it's going to depress you, girl. It's really not that big of a deal. You don't have to come if it's going. I don't want people that are going to be depressed. And mind you, my heart is breaking because this is someone that I went to college with, somebody that I was cool with, like we were on that level. And I thought that would have been a lifelong friendship. But anyway, she says, oh no, girl, I'm coming. What's the dress code? I said, it's a day wedding. So you can dress up or you can dress business casual. You can just chill out. It does. I mean, you can dress business casual. It's definitely not a jeans type of function, but if you got like a nice dress, you can put that on, or some nice slacks and a top. I was kind of giving her options because that's the relationship that I had with this woman, was me giving her advice and shit. So even in that moment, after she told me my wedding would depress her, she still wanted my help on what to wear to my wedding. And in that moment, I still was willing to give it. So she comes, so when on the day of the wedding, she actually does show up in dirty overalls and a t-shirt. And when I say overalls, think Farmer John, hook on both shoulders. I'm about to work in the field and get on the tractor overalls. The baggiest, most unflattering thing I've ever seen her wear. No makeup, no type of attempt at anything. Do you know that woman came to me, gave me a hug, said, I'm not staying long. As I'm coming down the staircase, as everybody hugging me, she goes, I'm not staying long. I just came to see how you look. And I came to just say, hey. Hugs me and proceeds to punch. Now, when I tell you, I have a picture of her hugging me. I have a picture before I came downstairs, a photographer did gather the wedding party for like group photos. So I do have a picture of her in a group photo before the ceremony started. But she really was determined to not really sit there because it would depress her. And she wanted me to feel, now this is after she asked my advice on clothes, she wanted me to feel that it wasn't serious to her by her coming in the most unattractive, the most dirty. I mean, I'm not even being funny. That girl literally came to my wedding like she was coming out the yard, and then decided to leave. And I know that it was, she wanted to show me, or to make the point of, it's not that deep for me. But why come to do that? And that was just one example. A lot of my cis girlfriends just did not show up. Shout out to my girlfriend Rudy. She did show up, although she stopped speaking to me after. Damn. Like, that relationship, being married, really, really put a wedge between, and it's really sad. Now, my community, to be real, the leaders in community, shout out to Dee Dee Shambly, shout out to BT, shout out to the leaders in community, the people that I worked with in activism, they showed up and showed out. But like my close personal friends, besides Toya, and like my family, that was it. Not too many people made the journey. Shout out to the lady that made my cake. She was a trans woman. I don't know why. Maya. Shout out to Maya, the trans woman that did my cake. She's a wonderful friend of mine. She actually was someone that I, through my work in community, helped transition. And she's also a pastry chef, and she's amazing. And she did my cake, and she did it for me as a gift, and it impressed all of my guests because it was a huge, one of those 4-tier ginormous cakes. And we had so much left over. I was just giving that lots of pieces of cake away to people. We ended up freezing some of it and eating it the next year, on the anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, girl, that event was it was very telling for me, because some of those relationships have never been mended, and there's never been a conversation as to why you never showed up to my wedding. And so I'm assuming the reason why they don't have a reason, and that's why they just stopped speaking to me. But yeah, it was really divided. My cis women friends really disappointed me. They hurt my heart. They really did. Now, shout out to my doctor. Even my doctor showed up to the festivity. She's a Black cis woman, and I'm very happy she came. And she's still my doctor to this day. But yeah, my actual friends from college did not, no shows. A lot of my good trans girlfriends, no shows. Now, for my trans girlfriends, I give them a little more of a pass, because I don't know everybody's financial situation like that, and I can understand how it's kind of intense to be in this environment with somebody else's family and all these cis het folks, and you don't know who they are. So I could get I will give that pass for my community friends that didn't show up, because I don't know there's so many other layers to that, because I don't know how I can't guarantee how they would have been treated, to be real. So, I mean, while I will say everybody that did come, I can say hindsight, everybody that did come had a wonderful time, and nobody was mistreated, because I don't have people in my life like that. But, you never know how hotel staff or whatever, how they could be. Sure. So, luckily, because that hotel was used, and that's why I had it at that hotel though too, because I wanted to be a hotel that I knew was going to be trans friendly, because they host the Southern Comfort Conference there. Or they did at one point when that existed. So I knew that it would be a safe place, but my trans mothers didn't come. I don't know what that was about. They both have apologized. They are both apologized, and they're both dead now. So rest in heaven, ladies. Rest in heaven, Alicia Newsom. Rest in heaven, Cheryl Courtney Evans. But yeah, they didn't show up, and that was something that was awkward. And they had, both of them apologized profusely, and they had their different reasons. And I don't know what, and it doesn't matter whether or not I understand their reasoning. The bottom line is we were fine, but it was a very telling thing. And the marriage in general is a lonely thing in this community. And
talk a little bit about, because I feel like from the outside looking in, people may have these assumptions that it's easy, or you finally got this man and you have it all together. But again, from conversations that you and I have had off the record, like it has been very alienating for you, to the point where it's impacted some of your relationships in your friend group.
And it's affected me, and it's affected my ability to gain employment. It's affected my ability to be accepted in community as an advocate. And here's why. What I've learned in this process as being a wife is there are a lot of people who have a lot of idealized, romanticized Disney ideas of what it is to be married. So they're not getting we going in on these bills. We got, two people, that's two different mouths to feed now. That's a whole life. There's all of that. There's family pressure. There's me navigating in the world with this man, because guess what? I'm still a trans woman. So now I have my husband with me, and we're trying to handle business and, and do different things. So there's always these awkward conversations that are always required. But what's the biggest thing that is isolating about this experience is, in whatever people's mind, it now becomes off as, oh, you've done it. Because we're a community that has this background where in the past, a strategy of survival was stealth, and getting a husband was like the height of it, because then you had the cushion to be able to not be in community, and you were supposed to get married and disappear. Well, that's very much the vibe that I got, that I still get in community, is why are you here? Why are you here? You over here yelling the loudest, and you not even going through nothing. You got a husband. You got a life. And so in their mind, my concern about the community is fake. Because you can't be really concerned because you're not in struggle. And unfortunately in our community, we don't know a fight we don't know how to fight and have people included that aren't necessarily in struggle, because a lot of our fight is born out of struggle. So then people will just look at me, hear where I am at in life now, see, the wins and successes that I've had, and they'll say, oh, you're exceptional. So they'll do that. Either they'll exceptionalize me out of the conversation by saying, oh, girl, you don't know what we've been through because you haven't been what we've been through. Not realizing, bitch, not only have I been through everything you've been through, I've been through it. And I've been through it hard. And all the girls here in Atlanta, the reason why they really respect me is because they remember me. They remember me as the little bummy looking butch queen tranny in the park that was trying to punch. You know what I'm saying? They remember me. So it's very problematic, though, when I go into community spaces. There are people that will make assumptions about me based on my appearance, based on what they think my socioeconomic background is, based on the fact that I have a husband. And they will say, oh, she's the problem, rather than embracing or even wanting to hear what I have to say or hear my journey and how I evolved to be this person. I paid the cost to be this boss. It wasn't handed to me. But that is often just dismissed because I now have done something that they can't identify with. So then I must be upholding heteronormativity and patriarchy and all of these other things that they try to imbue on my husband and my relationship. So it affects me politically in this community, because there are people that will not really let me at the table because they think I now represent heteronormativity. Now, on the flip side, it has also hurt me in jobs. So in community right now, there's this idea, rather than hire the most qualified girl, the goal, they want to hire someone so they can show that they're hiring a trans woman from the bottom. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So a lot of they will purposely find people that are not qualified for the positions. They will purposely find people from a certain level of struggle so that they can have that feather in their cap and say, I gave this job, I gave this opportunity to someone who was really, quote unquote, really in need. And unfortunately, even on the executive director level, on the program development level, on the curriculum development level, on levels that I know for a fact I am qualified and I've done the work, I still have a very hard time, once people realize I'm married, getting them to take me seriously as a community advocate. Because the first thing they try to make it out to be is, well, how do we know that you're not just going to leave? Because you really don't, because in their mind, you have a spouse, so you don't need a job, which is stupid, because we know that you can't pay bills in this world just on one income in America right now, the way the income thing goes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So they won't even, so I have literally had to talk about my husband in interviews. And even though I know that that's technically kind of illegal, I want the job, and I'm a Black trans person, and there are not a lot of jobs out there. And this is a nonprofit that says they're LGBT. So I'm hoping that they're not going to use that against me. But a lot of times what I've noticed is I will have people, because I've actually had the conversation with people after the fact, like, well, what was it? Because I have girlfriends that have been on committees for me to get hired for jobs, and I've been a finalist. I'm always a finalist. It's always between me and one other person. But ultimately, it always goes to someone that they believe really needs the job. And they don't think that I need it. And so then they're not willing to give me a chance to show my skill set. And this is the reason why I have this platform, because it has been virtually impossible. Because the jobs are so competitive, they want to say they gave it to a girl that really needed it. And they really judge me and make me feel very, very small. And then even in the conversations, like when I go on panels, the first thing people say is, and Samaya is married, and the crowd claps. And then it's like, so tell us about your marriage. You don't care about my politics. You don't care about my platform. You don't care about my education. You don't care about the work that I've done in curriculum. You don't care about anything that I've done for this community. I'm on this panel to talk about Black trans murders. And now I'm having to take a moment to talk about my husband. And while I love him down, he is not me. I am not him. I am a separate individual. Even my girlfriends, like we'll be in public and we'll be like in an event where we're speaking and we're advocating for a community. And I will purposely introduce myself as just me, but they will make a point to tell everybody in the room, or one of them will grab the mic, and she's married. And I get that they're proud of me. And I know that they look up to me in that way. And for a lot of women, this is a milestone because I didn't think I was going to get married. I didn't think this was a reality for me as a trans person myself. So I get it on a certain level, but it is also very reductive, because now I'm no one without him. Even when I go, it doesn't matter. I could have just given a 30-minute keynote speech for an event of young leaders. And afterwards, everybody be like, where's your husband? Oh, okay. I was about to say, girl, like if he's not here, or if a man will approach me and be like, where's your husband? And if he's not there, then it's very, oh, y'all okay? Is he okay? Are y'all okay? It's like, yeah, we're fine. I chose to come to this alone. But it just goes to show we live in a society where misogyny still affects even trans people in the way they see themselves. Misogyny and patriarchy affects how women are treated, even trans women treating each other and the community treating. Because to be real, this was very damaging for my career. To be real, being married was very damaging for my career, because that is something in Atlanta in particular, because I had that big grand event, because everybody talked about it, because it became a thing. Oh, she don't need nothing. Why y'all giving it to her? Somebody don't need that job. You need to give it to a girl that need it. And I've heard girls say that while in my presence. Girl, and they'll be like, oh, you apply for the job, Samaya? They don't need to give it to you. They need to give it to a girl that need a job. Bitch, you don't need a job. And I'm like, yes, the fuck I do. But again, I have a husband. And in their mind, you're not even supposed to be one to do this community shit. So yeah, girl, it's been a problem.
So I guess now keeping the focus on the trans women in your circle, how have those relationships ended? Have they evolved? Like, what's the state of those like relationships now in relation to your marriage and you being a married woman?
I will say this: I have a privilege and an honor to have beautiful sisters. I don't have the kind of sisters that the world would try to say all trans women are. I don't have predatory sisters that are trying to get my man's eye behind my back. I don't have sisters that I have to wonder if I'm leaving the room, if it's gonna be a little tit flash, or like the stereotype in our community, unfortunately, that we've even bought into is that trans women, particularly when you're in a relationship, you can't have them around your man. And I would put my argument to that is, if you hanging around with basic bitches that don't love you for real, then no, you can't have them around your man. Not because of him, but because you don't want to put no one in a situation where I'm gonna have to beat a bitch ass. But my friends, my real friends, my sisters, y'all have been amazing. I have sisters that can come stay. I used to live around the corner from her. And like my husband and she and her boyfriend at the time, and me and her would go and have dinners at each other's houses and card games. And we would, we were just really, really close. And I think my girlfriends, what I really appreciate is how much they like my man and how much they respect him and how comfortable he feels around them. And I think it's largely in part to, one, me bringing him into the community very early on. So then he already had in his mind, he knows these people even before we were married, but he also knows about the issues that trans people go through, because I made a point to make sure that he was educated by being a part of the conversation. If anybody has ever been to Philly Trans Health Conference, you met my husband because he was there. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, he's spoken on 2 panels at that conference.
Yes.
So I have a husband that is involved in community, that is connected. And I think that's why he's able to get a level of respect. And for my really, really close friends, the girls that are welcome in my home, those girls have been nothing but wonderful to me. So I don't really have no real gripes for my sisters. And even in community now, people now, there used to be a time where my husband would come to spaces and like people would just speak to me. They would act like he wasn't there. The girls would be like, hey girl, hey, and then walk off like he's not standing there. Now, because he's been, so many girls around the country have known him through, him going places with me and speaking, he now is able to have friends, and he has trans friends that are trans women that are just his friend. And I'm okay with that, because I know where he be at, and I love him and I trust him. And I know there are some people that be like, ooh, sis, I don't know. But no, these are women that have proven themselves over the decade we've been together to not be a threat. And that's why I don't mind him having friends. So my friends are good and his trans friends are good.
So I guess to end this conversation, if you had to do your whole wedding process over again, would you like do anything differently, or?
No, I wouldn't have done anything differently. I would have reacted differently. I was at that reception, while I can remember it fondly, I remember being very angry that, they didn't put the ballroom they didn't move the tables where they said they were. The setup wasn't how we agreed. The venue kind of, didn't do anything that they said they were going to do. Well, not do anything. I won't say that, because they put together a wonderful meal and they did a great job with the serving and all of that. But like, there were a lot of mistakes in the actual reception that I was so focused on in the moment that I had a bad mood. That even though it was loving and I can remember the love now, I also remember in that moment, like, being very, very angry. And so I would change that reaction. It also didn't help that I had that encounter with my mother-in-law that wasn't great. And even though now we're great and all that jazz, I would have probably stopped her in that moment and we would have had the conversation. I would not have allowed it, because see, then when we finally had it after we were married, I wish, going back, that when we were going through those sliding glass doors at the Crown Plaza Ravinia in Sandy Springs, that I would have stopped her right then and there and say, hey, my name is, and how are you? And we would have had that conversation. Because what I realize now is, she, like me, is the type of woman, we're going to have the conversation, bitch. And I didn't do that then, and it manifested in a way later that I don't think was the most productive while we've gotten past it. But yeah, that I wish I would have did differently. And I wish that I put a lot less emotional investment in people coming. Because at the end of the day, that did not fucking matter. The wedding, the actual wedding, only had my brother as my witness and his sister as his witness. And it was the most beautiful memory that I have. The reception was nice. I enjoyed the accolades of that moment, but and that moment with my father is the takeaway. But I put entirely too much investment in the people and how things looked at that place. And we said at one point, Tierra said at one point, we regretted it, but I think we both have evolved to the place where our family wouldn't have seen that. I wouldn't have had that moment with my father had we not done that reception, because that was such an outlay of money. It was way, way, way more than the wedding. So hindsight being 2020, I don't change a thing. I would just change my reactions.
And I guess my last question is, what advice would you impart to the ecosystem around, like, should another girl get married? What advice would you impart to the ecosystem of people around that trans woman, like to the family and to the sisters?
Don't walk away. Don't walk away. I think a lot of people think, I think a lot of people assume that when you're in a relationship that they need to steer clear. It was very lonely. I went through a lot of very, very painful things. And a lot of my people that I would ordinarily just call up and they would just answer at a dime had just slowly faded out of my life. Um, and so I would advise the community to rally around and support the couple, because they need it. Because if y'all not supporting the couple, you do know the rest of the world isn't. So it's important to have the community rally around you. I would also say, if you are a chosen family member of someone that is getting married or going down that path, remember that while I am married, I still need you too. He doesn't replace you. Those relationships were so vital and so important. And when everybody kind of disappeared, it was really, really painful for me. And so if I could go back, I would tell the community, you uplift this couple, you encourage that couple, you make sure that, you know what I'm saying, you're rooting for them to win. That is not a time to share your jaded stories of, you know, of all of the things that have happened to you, because what happened to you may not happen to me. And in that moment, I really just needed people that were going to say, yay, you know. And I think about how lonely, even though my girlfriend did a great job of trying to cheer me up, we had a wonderful time at the gathering. I just think about how I can sit around all these girls and go to everybody event and go to everybody community function and all of this stuff. And when I'm having this moment that is milestone, that really could be something that I wanted to share with 70 of my own personal closest friends, or share with the community. I didn't necessarily, not my closest friends, but I wanted to share it with my community. This wasn't just my moment, but no one wanted to go through this moment with me, it felt like, or not many people did. And that's sad. So yeah, you rally around the couple, one, stay in their lives even after they're married and make a point to let people know that you're there for them, two, and then three, always remember that who you are and who I am have, while it changes over time, the institution of marriage does not significantly change a person. And so if I am someone that was an advocate who cared and loved about community and was engaged and really, really was kind of moving and shaking, and then now after I'm married, it becomes a setback and I can't participate in community activities because people feel like, well, what is your place to be here? Not realizing my place has always been here and I helped create the table you're sitting at. And that's not even being shady, that's being real. And so it was really, really weird to then have these same organizations that I partnered with, that I love, that I supported, just be like, oh, well, you know, and then the married lady, referring to me as the married lady is reductive. I don't like that at all, at fucking all. So as a community, I get that we're excited about marriage and what it means, but I'm a person, and I was a person before I was married. I'm a separate individual from my husband. While we are united as a team means more than one person in the team. It's not one person. And so I just want people to remember that. Remember to support people even as they promote in life. And just because someone is increasing in life doesn't mean that they're not concerned about the bedrock issues that affect the rank and file members of community.
And I would just like to add, like, to our trans women to like really work through your issues of jealousy and enviousness, because I feel like, from my perspective, that's the root. That's at the heart of a lot of why we can't support each other, especially those of us who are sisters. And I think it stems from a fear of being alone and a feeling of not being worthy. But like, jealousy and envy, they are regular human emotions. We all have them, and like, they are things that can be worked through, and they're things that you can process. But when you allow that emotion to make you not be supportive of your friend who's going through this major life event, I don't know. I think we end up losing time and losing moments with each other, and I just really, it just the just to see how we let jealousy and envious because we want something that somebody else's that we see that somebody else has, but we really don't know what it's like. And we're basing this off of all of these assumptions of what we think it is and what we think we should have, when really we should be taking the time to celebrate each other and lift each other up. So I just think, especially with trans women, like that jealousy and that enviousness, that's at like the root of all of it. And we really have to challenge each other to work through it. Work through it and to process through it. I'm not saying don't have, like, it's a natural human emotion to have, especially for all of us that are looking for love and that are looking for partnership. Like, I get it. And I'm not going to act like I haven't had those feelings when you see the people on your timeline. But it's just like, you have to work through that. And you have to be like, you have to be happy from other people from a genuine place. So I guess that's my 2 cents. But sis, I definitely appreciate you for sharing like this story, because I know this is a very intimate and it's very emotional for you to share. But like I said, I think people needed to hear the experience from the other side, and just to hear like what this is really like, and just to have a realistic expectation. Because marriage is a beautiful day, and we come together to celebrate, but it can reveal who people are, especially when you need them to show up for you and you need them to celebrate you.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Box Number 512 Podcast.
Grown Black Trans Woman Talk.
Don't forget to go to our Anchor page to become a monthly sponsor.
And also feel free to like, follow, and subscribe to us on all of our social media platforms.
And also, please don't forget to rate and review our podcast. Every comment matters.
And lastly, please follow and tune in for our live interactive Facebook show every Friday
on Facebook and YouTube. Until next time,
I'm the Lioness.
And I'm Aeon. Bye.